Hey, yo, what's good? A few days ago, I did a video on the controversy of the first Marquez versus Pacquiao fight, where the judge Burt Clemens he scored the first round, which Marquez got dropped 3 times. He scored it 10-7, which allowed him to score the fight 113, a draw. So that was a controversy in fight one. But I wanted to go more in depth on the rivalry that is Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez, because they've had 4 great fights so far, and their careers have intertwined one way or another. Because face it, Juan Manuel Marquez has moved up in weight to fight Pacquiao, for the chance to fight Pacquiao, not for any other reason. So these guys have affected each other's careers since their first fight, and I wanted to go in depth into their fights because the first 3 are riddled in controversy. So the first fight, as you see here, it was Juan Manuel Marquez versus Manny Pacquiao, and this was a highly anticipated bout between 2 of the best featherweights of the world. Juan Manuel Marquez had just got the IBF titles, the IBF and WBA titles when he beat Derek Gainer. So this was his first defense. And Manny Pacquiao had just knocked out Marc Antonio Barrera in his performance that pretty much made him a sensation. Pretty much got him famous in the United States. Juan Manuel Marquez was 42-2 with 33 knockouts, and Manny Pacquiao was 38-2 with 29 knockouts. So this fight started with fireworks, as we stated before. 3 knockdowns with Manny Pacquiao's left hand. It could not miss in the first round. It could not miss. The speed and the accuracy of that left hand was just phenomenal. Juan Manuel Marquez, he got caught. I'm not gonna say he only got caught 3 times in that. He got caught hard several times in that round. But he got dropped 3 times. The third round, it looked like he wasn't getting up. He covered his face with his gloves, but kind of looked like he's like, all right, I gotta get up now. So he gets up, fights Manny Pacquiao, stands toe to toe. He still gets hit with a few left hooks after the third knockdown, but he survives the round. After the first round, Nacho Beristain tells Marquez, he's yelling at him. He says in Spanish, "Aniquila la izquierda." That means take away that left hand. Aniquila, translated correctly, the word for word would mean annihilate. So he technically said annihilate the left hand. And that's pretty much what Marquez did after that. I gave rounds 2 and 3 to Manny Pacquiao because though Marquez did decrease the times he got hit with that left hand, they were still opening. They were still landing. I mean, they were still hitting him hard, and that's why I gave him those second and third round. But ending the third round, at the end of the second and third round, you could see Marquez adjusting. You could sense that the momentum is changing, that Marquez is changing this fight, and that's why from rounds 4 to rounds 9, I gave him to Marquez, because he was the one controlling the pace. He was the one that took Pacquiao's left hand away. Pacquiao really was kind of gun shy to throw that left hand, and at that time, Pacquiao was a one-handed bandit. He still is in a way, not as much as before, but he was a left-handed bandit. He would try to knock everyone out with that left hand. That was his main weapon and the one he used the most at the same time. But Marquez took that away from him. He landed some good shots, some good overhand rights, some solid body, some beautiful right hooks to the body. these right hooks to the body, I could describe them as he was throwing them from a distance to to Manny Pacquiao's to Manny Pacquiao's left side, but from a distance that it wouldn't really open him up to Pacquiao's left hand. So it was a thing of beauty. He would throw a right hand when he got in close, and then a right uppercut. Those of us who follow Marquez's career know he's one of the best combination punchers of the last generation. Marquez kept his high guard after the first 2 or 3 rounds. His guard was up to avoid that, at least to avoid the impact of that left hand when Manny Pacquiao would throw it. When Manny Pacquiao would throw it, I felt like he won the rounds, but he wouldn't really throw it that much after the 3rd round. After the 8th round, which Pacquiao landed some good shots, but Marquez would beat him to the punch and throw more in that round. That's why I scored round 8 for Marquez. Nacho Beristan says, if you win, you keep the title, and if you draw, you keep the title. But we can't afford to lose rounds after this. So he knew what position Marquez was in. He knew that he was fighting beautifully, but he was on thin ice because of that first round. And and Freddie Roach told Manny Pacquiao to not let Juan Manuel Marquez back him up, which Marquez was at time. Round 10s I give to Pacquiao because he exploded in this round. He was landing the bigger shots. He was going in and out, like we were used to seeing Manny Pacquiao do for the last couple of years. In and out. That's what he did in round 10. Marquez won round 11 in my book, and then the last round was what decided the fight. Manny Pacquiao was landing the cleaner punches, the left hands. Marquez was standing in a trade. Both of these men finished strong, but Manny Pacquiao won it to me because he was the one setting the pace for this fight and landing the harder punches. Marquez didn't really land much of note in round 12, and that's why I scored this fight 4 rounds to 8 for Manny Pacquiao. 113. 4 rounds to, or 5 rounds to 7 actually. 5 rounds to 7. 113, 112 for Manny Pacquiao. That last round was the deciding factor. And this is how Burt Clemens scored it as well, except he scored the first round 10-7 instead of 10-6 like I did. So if I had it 10-6 or 10-7, if I had it 10-7, I'd have scored it a draw too. But this was such a great fight. Both of these men showed why now they're future Hall of Famers, why people should watch them. And really, they have nothing to be ashamed of. Neither of them have anything to be ashamed of, and that's why I love that this fight ended in a draw, because every time I watch it, I have a different score, and everybody that you talk with has a different score and scores this fight differently. This fight is a work of art. This fight showed the greatness of both fighters, the speed of Manny Pacquiao, the power, the relentlessness, the recklessness as well. Marquez showed his combination punches, his resiliency, his balls, his heart, his technical ability. Showed the greatness of both fighters. And that's why I love this fight. That's why this fight is a modern classic and will live forever. And it's what started their great rivalry. That's why I would always have a spot in my heart as one of the greatest fights that I have ever seen. And for a lot of people that follow Mayweather and they agree with him that Manny Pacquiao is a hype job, just watch some of his early fights, some of his fights at 122, some of his fights at featherweight, at 130. Don't just believe everything this man says, because after you watch this fight, you cannot say that he was a hype job. Even though he lost the most of the rounds, you cannot say he is a hype job from this fight, because he almost murked a future Hall of Famer. He almost got him out of there in the first round. Anyway, since this was such a great fight and had a bit of a controversial ending, there needed to be a rematch. But we wouldn't get a rematch until 4 years later. So, Manny Pacquiao went on to face Eric Morales, which he lost, but then he redeemed himself the next year in 2006 when he stopped him in the 10th round. He knocked out Oscar Larios, and then he beat Eric Morales in that third fight where Morales decided he's done. He beat Jorge Solis, knocked him out in the 8th round, an undefeated 34-0 Jorge Solis. And then he beat Barrera in a rematch. He dominated. I remember ordering that fight. He dominated Barrera. So then in Marquez's case, he beat Orlando Salido. I'm just talking about big names, right? Orlando Salido. And then he went to Indonesia. Oh man, for what reason? Yeah, no one will ever know. But he took chump change to fight in Indonesia when he was getting offers from Manny Pacquiao. He was getting offers to fight Pacquiao in the Philippines. So it really didn't make sense. And plus, he lost. He lost that fight. So he went to Indonesia to fight Chris John for his WBA featherweight title, and he lost a controversial decision. Well, he goes on, keeps fighting. He fought Marco Antonio Barrera, beats him on a unanimous decision, and then Barrera gets to fight Pacquiao instead. Then he beats Rocky Martinez. Man, that guy never won a title. Feel bad for Rocky. But after all that, after 4 years, after winning the WBC Super Featherweight Championship from Marco Antonio Barrera, he gets to defend it the second time against Manny Pacquiao in their second fight. Marquez was now 48-3 with 35 knockouts, and Pacquiao was 45-3 with 34 knockouts, so they were still pretty even. But Pacquiao wasn't as reckless in this fight. He was going in and out. He was using his right hand, but he still got caught with Marquez's combinations. Marquez was still landing the telling punches throughout the majority of the rounds. The first 2 rounds I gave Marquez because he was controlling the pace. Pacquiao was pretty hesitant to throw. But in the 3rd round, Marquez opened himself up. He was no longer that safety first fighter. He was now an explosive boxer puncher. He was now El Dinamita. Marquez got dropped and he was hurt. This carried into the 4th, where Pacquiao still landed some hard lefts, straight lefts that hurt Marquez but did not put him down. The name of the game for Marquez is adjusting, and that's what he did the 5th round, in which he backed up Pacquiao with some hard right hands and some body shots. And 5 and 6 go to Marquez. 7 I gave to Pacquiao because Marquez was winning that round, but Marquez got cut from a headbutt, and then he came back and Pacquiao put in some work in that round. 8 Pacquiao because Marquez hurt Pacquiao in that fight. So much momentum changes. I love it. So many hard rounds to score. 9 I gave to Pacquiao. 10 I gave to Pacquiao. But those rounds were back and forth too. 11 was back and forth. But I gave it to Marquez because he landed the hardest shots. Round 12 was a close round too. They finished so well. These fighters just were meant for each other. But round 12, Pacquiao was landing some good shots, but Marquez backed him up. He had him on the ropes for the last minute of the fight. I'm not going to say he had him hurt, but he hurt him with some shots, and that's why he had his back against the rope. I scored it 114-113 for Marquez. So 7 rounds to 5, including that knockdown for Marquez. Extremely close. This fight was scored 115-112 for Pacquiao, 115-112 for Marquez. So just like the first fight, 2 judges have the exact same score, but for the completely different fighter. Judge 3 had it, Tom Miller, 113-114, like my score, but for Manny Pacquiao, which meant the second fight went to Manny Pacquiao. Now the rivalry was 1-0-1 in favor of Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. Man, this was such a good fight. So many momentum changes. I gave it to Marquez, but this is another fight that's extremely close and could have gone the other way. And also another fight that made the fans want more, want to see a rematch, that were not satisfied. This was called unfinished business, and it was. But at the end, it was still unfinished business. The time between their second fight and their third fight was both of these fighters' most successful time in their career, and they had their best fights in their career between their second fight and their third fight. Their second fight was in 2008, and their third fight didn't happen until 2011. This is where Pacquiao became a bona fide superstar, right? A world celebrity, man. World famous. Number 1 pound for pound fighter. And between this time, you really can't argue that Pacquiao was the number 1 fighter. You can argue, yes, of course, Mayweather, but he'd fight once a year. You can't argue that Pacquiao stopped being pound for pound until the third fight where he fought Marquez and didn't look that well. But he fought David Diaz in that destruction. Got a bloody David. I remember I was watching it with my uncle in Mexico, and it was the exact right before the knockout. He's like, man, just break him. He's like, just break him. And that's when Pacquiao landed that left hook, and David Diaz got knocked out. Oscar De La Hoya murked Oscar. Ricky Hatton murked Ricky Hatton. Cotto murked Cotto. Joshua Clottey made him go on a show for 12 rounds. Joshua Clottey is an underrated fighter, a very good fighter, and this should be classified as a very good win as well. Margarito, man, he broke the man's face. Shane Mosley had him running, had him blacking out throughout the whole fight, and that was what set up this fight with Marquez. After the second fight with Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez moved up to lightweight. He fought Casamayor, knocked him out in the 11th round. Really good fight, too, between 2 counterpunchers. It's a chess match. That's a good fight. The fight of the year in 2009 against Juan Diaz in a great fight. 9-round knockout. This was a Juan Manuel Marquez who was no longer the boring fighter. He was the exciting fighter now. He was a dinamita. He had changed completely now. Completely his reputation, his fighting style. That's when he moved up to welterweight to fight Floyd Mayweather at 146. No, it was at 144 actually. Mayweather made 146, 2 pounds over. He gave Marquez $200,000 to appease him. he got whooped. He got dropped the second round. Blah, blah, blah. Mayweather. All right. He beat up Juan Diaz the second time. He had a war with Caceres. And he knocked out Licar Ramos in that infamous first fight that many people think was fixed to set up this second fight against his third fight against Manny Pacquiao. Now this second fight, I remember this fight as not being that good. And though I will say that this is the worst of their fights, it was still very entertaining and very back and forth and very hard to score, which is the worst part, right, of these fights. But I'll just go rounds. I probably won't break it down as much because there's not that much action, but there's still a lot of action. So the first two rounds I had Marquez winning once again. Third round, Pacquiao, he lands some good shots. When Pacquiao would win, he would land some good shots. He would move forward. But when Juan Manuel Marquez was winning, he was controlling the pace and even backing up Manny Pacquiao. This was a Manny Pacquiao that was more cautious. He tried to bring in boxing skills to it. He was less reckless, and that's what was detrimental to him in this fight. Even though he won, he did not look good at all in this fight. He came in trying to box Marquez, trying to use head movement, which I don't believe was very effective. It just looked like he was scared to throw, scared to commit. And I had Pacquiao losing this fight 7-5. I had Marquez winning. Marquez, this was his best fight thus far. His third fight, he landed some beautiful combinations, some good right hands, some good uppercuts throughout the fight. Marquez kept ducking under Pacquiao's combinations, ducking and landing punches, making Pacquiao miss. I think the judges got swayed by Pacquiao's volume in some of these rounds, and maybe a few shots would land, but Marquez would land more of his combination punches, or he would back up Pacquiao when he would throw combinations. See, when Marquez would back up, that just seems like it's his style to back up because he's a counterpuncher. But when you're making Pacquiao back up, that makes Marquez look like the aggressor, which is giving him points to win that round, which is giving me at least more reason to give him that round, because then you know Pacquiao is fighting a Marquez fight. And in many of these rounds, this is how I see Marquez winning this fight. Well, what was detrimental for Marquez at the end was in the last few rounds, Nacho Beristain told him that he had this fight won and that he should just cruise in the last few rounds. Big mistake. He ended up losing not as close as decision, majority decision. 114. There were no knockdowns in this fight either. 113, 115, 113, 116, 112, which is 8 rounds to 4 to Pacquiao, which I find unfathomable, and 114, 114. So their first two fights were decided by 1 point. Their first two fights combined. And this fight was decided by 5 points. No, 6 points. So these were still relatively close fights, but people were giving Pacquiao the benefit of the doubt for just his volume and maybe landing some clean shots, but not more than Marquez, not being more effective than Marquez. Though Pacquiao did win the last 2 rounds on my scorecards, which I could see how that would sway the judges in a very close fight up to that point. How could you could give it to Marquez? So after the third fight, I'm like, yeah, Marquez got robbed. He's been getting robbed in these last 3 fights. He's never going to get a decision. So I'm like, once they started talking about the third fight, I'm like, man, Marquez, you know what's going to happen. After the third fight, he ran out of the ring, didn't do an interview. Max Kellerman had to run to Marquez's locker room and have an interview with the naked Marquez. I'm not kidding, guys. He was naked. He put a sombrero. He put a sombrero over his groin. That's all he was wearing, a sombrero. Oh, man. That's just how pissed Marquez was, man. But I'm like, Marquez has to knock out Pacquiao to even get a draw, man. Cause he's not gonna beat Pacquiao by decision. So I was like, man, what's the point? What's the point of having a fourth fight? I did not want to see a fourth fight. And then when it got signed, I'm like, whatever. Well, when Pacquiao lost to Bradley, I was like, well, that might as well you might as well give that decision to Marquez in the third fight. But he didn't want to rematch Bradley. So Marquez has that fight in his hometown of Mexico City against Serhii Ferchenko, who was a good who was a good fighter, not a great champion, but he was a decent fighter at that time. So he goes to Mexico, has his homecoming, doesn't quite get him out of there, but he tries. He tried, guys, to get him out of there. He really did. If you watch that fight live, you see that he really did. But that sets up the fourth fight, which is an instant classic. The day of the fight comes, and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this fight. But it comes the time of the fights, right? And I'm like, I have to watch this fight. I have to. So I hit up my home. I'm like, hey man, are you getting this fight? He's like, yeah, come over. Like, sweet. So I go over. The fight starts. Undercard is garbage. That doesn't matter. The fight starts. Manny Pacquiao wins the first few rounds. But Marquez drops him in the third round with an overhand right for the first time in 4 fights. This 39 rounds had passed fighting Manny Pacquiao, and this was the first time that Marquez dropped Manny Pacquiao. He had been dropped 4 times in 3 fights, but he had never dropped Pacquiao. So this was very significant. We now knew as fans that Marquez could hurt Pacquiao, that he could drop him, and that had to help Marquez psychologically, because round 4 I gave it to him, but round 5 he was getting beat up. He got hit by some good left hands. He had a busted nose. Round 6 he had a busted nose. It was all bleeding. I heard he got a broken nose. He had a broken nose. This fight was fireworks, man. It was a very good fight. The 5th round was actually round of the year because, as always, when Marquez gets hurt, he doesn't clinch. Not all the time. He uses his defense. This is defense, folks. This is defense. Moving your head, moving your feet, trying to avoid punches. Clinching isn't defense. That's not infighting. Clinching is a way to avoid infighting. That's not defense. That's not true defense. True defense is what Whitaker would do. He would bend down and bob and weave. That's what Marquez tried to do against Pacquiao throughout the whole rivalry. So round 6 comes, Marquez getting beat up again. Like, man, I don't know how much more of this Marquez could have lasted. I probably would have gave him till round 9 for probably Nacho to throw in the towel or the doctor to stop it, because he couldn't breathe. He had his mouth open the whole round. So he was hurt and he had a busted nose. And that's very significant when you have when you have your mouth open and you're breathing through your mouth, you get more tired. Plus, you leave yourself open to get a broken jaw. That's Victor Ortiz. Man, I didn't think I would mention him in this video, but hey, going off the dome. Anyway, the moment happens. Man, I was at my homie's house. I didn't know most of his family. I think I knew his parents. That's it. The rest of the people there, I did not know. But man, we're all had and jumping up and down. Marquez. It was such a great moment, and I could feel how great of a moment this was in the arena, because since they came out, you could tell it was all Marquez. The first few fights they had Marquez and Pac fans, but this fight was all Marquez. They were seeing Marquez's entrance music when he was coming out. They were singing the national anthem. Everybody knew it. The Mexican national anthem. They were chanting, "Ole, ole, 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 Marquez, Marquez," louder than ever before. The crowd erupted in the third round when he dropped Pacquiao. So this was different. This just felt like something special was gonna happen, and it did, man. Marquez finally got his validation. He caught Pacquiao coming in, hit him with that right hand. Bam! Pacquiao practically dropped dead with his hands on his hips. He couldn't even put his hands up. He was knocked out before he hit the canvas. And I'm sure that didn't help either, man. This was Marquez's holy grail. This is what Marquez had been chasing for 2004 till 2012, for 8 years. 8 years of his career. All his prime years chasing Manny Pacquiao to beat him. And he finally achieved it. And what a great moment it was, man. What a great moment it was. And what a great rivalry. You just got to thank these two fighters for giving it their all in these 4 fights. And this is also validation that when the best fight the best, you get the best fights. And because they're so good, maybe someone doesn't win clearly, you do a rematch. You do a trilogy. Maybe you have to do 4 fights like this fight. But it's worth it because the fans get good fights, and you make money. You make money making good fights. The fighters become superstars because the people want to see them. Mexico and the Philippines. This is what Marquez and Pacquiao represented their respective country, and they represented them well. And I want to thank Pacquiao and Marquez for fighting each other 4 times. And you got to thank the boxing gods who put this together, that just knew that their styles would fit so well. Imagine these guys never fought. Imagine Marquez was like, "Oh, I've never heard of Pacquiao. I'm not going to fight him." Imagine that. Like, what a shame that would have been. That would have been so sad. But we got him. And like I've said, this was my favorite rivalry. This was my Ali Frazier. My Robinson Lamata. Thank you guys for watching. And if you guys like this video, I know it's a little long, but I could... No, I'm not going to shorten it. But if you like this video, I could do more videos on different rivalries, like maybe Ali Frazier, Ali Norton, and things like that. Barrero Morales, that's another good one. But this one is definitely my favorite in my lifetime. Anyway, once again, thank you guys for watching. What is your Ali Frazier? Please let me know. What is your Robinson Lamata? What is your favorite rivalry that you guys lived through? And what do you think about this rivalry? You guys have a great day. Peace.